Okay. Well, it looks like we're live. So, welcome everyone to the Livin' Live Teen Music Conference. Thanks for joining us. Huge thanks to Max and Otto for that awesome performance. Super talented guys over there. So, really excited to talk to everyone today. We've got a great list of people. I want to start with introducing Marshall Greenhouse, who is the founder of Livin' Live Teen Music Conference. And let's just hear a little bit, Marshall, from you about what Livin' Live Teen Music Conference is.
Hey, thanks, Vanessa. And thanks to I'm a Chicago-based musician and music educator, and I've been teaching for a long time. One of my favorite things to teach is kids rock bands, whether they're super young or teens. In fact, one of my first kind of ventures into doing that, I did a summer camp where we were in a studio and there were several bands, and one of the panelists today, who's grown to be a great musician. I think when he was 8, Spencer did one of the music camps with me, and I've been doing stuff ever since, like that ever since. When I first realized that this wasn't just going to pass, that it wasn't just a March for 2-week thing, that we would really be home a lot and working on just not going anywhere and no shows or anything. I started working on my own recording, but then I also started working on trying to think of ways to help further and develop teen musicians when not being able to actually perform live and get together and rehearse. So I started a series of online classes that offer a lot of the skills that are needed to really be successful in music. And when I say successful, I don't just mean be a rock star, but be successful as in make a living for yourself that you're happy with in the music industry. And there's so many different things that you could do for that, whether it's marketing, being an engineer, being a stagehand, or there's just so many different routes you could take. So my goal is to offer all of those different types of classes: music law and business and video work. So there's a series of classes that happen, and I wanted to make sure that they were offered to anyone that wanted to take them. So they're all offered at any donation amount that you want to pay, you could take. And so this is where we're at.
Awesome. Excuse me. So I have been enjoying my experience so far with Livin' Live Teen Music Conference, and I really appreciate you bringing me in today, and for the last 6 weeks, I guess. We have a lot of great panelists today that are going to talk about, how to succeed during a pandemic as a teen musician. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to stay motivated. It's hard to keep things going. Before we get started, I have a couple reminders. One is that we really want you guys all to ask questions, and so you can either type them in the chat, or at the end you can verbally shout them out as we open up the Q&A. But also, we are giving away a pair of headphones donated by Shure at a $400 value. I'm telling you, these headphones are amazing, and I'm really jealous that I can't win them. So for everyone that joined tonight, you're entered into a raffle, and at the end of our conversation, we will raffle those off, and I'll wish you all luck at winning them. So to get started, I've already introduced Marshall. We also have Libby Peterson here, who is the Director of Marketing for My Mantra Marketing. Libby works specifically with nonprofit organizations that are dedicated to the music industry, as well as with performing bands and artists. So thank you for being here, Libby. We also have Greg Fundis, Chicago-based drummer and music educator. And I've had the joy of knowing Greg for a lot of years. I'm not sure how many now, but one of the cool things that when I first started working with Greg, his band 56 Hope Road had won the title of the most on-the-road dates in a single year from touring artists. It was pretty impressive. It was like at least 270, if not close to 300, which is exhausting, by the way. We have Anacron here joining us today. He is a songwriter, and he is actually teaching the songwriting course for the Livin' Live fall 2 session. So anyone joining that course, you're going to get a lot of great time with Anacron. And then we've got Spencer Tweedy. There you are, Spencer. And Spencer is also a Chicago drummer with extensive experience, touring experience. And Spencer, you also run studio audio engineering, correct? Awesome. Talented man you are. So thank you guys so much for being here today. And I am Vanessa Robinson. I've had the luxury and joy of doing all sorts of tricks and trades in the music industry because, you know, they say that those who can't do teach, well, those who can't play produce, and that's what I do. So I am here to moderate your conversation today, and I'm really excited. So thank you guys all for being here today. I would love to get started. I have a few questions that I'll throw out to all of the panelists here. Starting with the struggle of motivation. So the last 8 months, as Marshall also mentioned, we've been sitting at home. We are in a routine of basically waking up, we go online, we probably have Zoom classes all day long or Zoom work all day long. We do some homework, we try to eat, maybe we're grazing all day, and then we go to bed, and then we do it all over again, and there's not much else that happens. So it's got to be really tough to stay motivated, especially for creative people and the creative side of the brain. And I'd love, panelists, to hear from you if you have any advice on how to motivate yourself to get jump started, to get the creative juices flowing, and to keep making music and creativity happen. And panelists, you're all muted. Okay.
So yeah, I just want to say that I think it's important to do your craft every day. Motivate yourself each day to write music, to practice, to work on your projects. Another bullet point I had was set goals for yourself. So something simple like make a to-do list for that day, and how will that help you complete, you know, your week-long goals and your monthly goals, and then your long-term goals as a musician. So I think it can be as simple as waking up and working on playing a couple chords, maybe doing a little bit of video editing that you have to do from some footage that you shot of yourself or other musicians. So finding something simple each day, but doing it every day, and like looking forward to that, that opportunity to just practice your craft each day. And that's what's motivated me, just trying to work on composing each day and then completing projects with clients and friends every day. So
Greg, do you set sort of like time goals for yourself? Like, I need to dedicate 1 hour of the morning to composing, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, for some projects I would do that. I share a studio, and so I would book maybe 3 hours of time. So if my project required me getting it done in 3 hours, then I use that as the goal. But when I'm composing or just trying to be creative, I try not to put as many structures around that. I just kind of let it flow. I find that that's makes it easier and less pretense involved. You know, sometimes you're really feeling it and you come up with great ideas. Sometimes you're churning out stuff that you're not really happy with, but you're getting all those bad ideas out of the way and making way for all the good stuff that's coming next. But if you're not doing it every day, you're going to have longer periods of time where you're churning out stuff that you're not as happy with. But if you're doing it every day, you'll get into this flow where you'll start to get something good from every time you sit down and record yourself. And every opportunity you have to work on your craft, you're going to find something good there if you do it every day and make it a habit. So it's a good habit to have.
Awesome. Spencer, Anacron, do you guys have anything to add to that?
Anacron, you go ahead.
I was actually going to speak to, I guess, a different perspective of the reality, and that's just looking at the fact that for me, I think it's been more of an opportunity to be able to have the time to focus solely on music, coming from a background of when I was younger, being, you know, having my own record label, being signed to a handful of independent labels, being signed to one baby major label and one major label. I essentially grew up through like middle to late teens and then through my early 20s, just working on music all day, every day, touring all year, every single year, never being home, to, previous years being more kind of on the professional side of the music world, as well as some other work that I do, and not having just the time to work on as much music as I used to, where I would just get up and work on music all day and then go to sleep and do the same thing the next day. And I think that for me, the recent change has given me an opportunity to kind of live how I used to. And that's been an amazing blessing for me. And I think that the thing that I'd like to encourage people to take from that is the fact that you can utilize it. You can look at it as a negative, which it definitely is in many ways, but also finding the positive in this situation and seeing the opportunity that lies in this situation is an important place to start as far as motivating you to be able to work on what you're doing. For me, it's looking at it and saying, wow, I have the time to do this now, so I'm going to do it, and jumping into it and being able to curate some compilations and mix and master a ton of people's recordings and do some video production, as Greg mentioned, and then of course record and write and play and release some of my own things, from digital releases to vinyl releases, all since the pandemic started. That's been for me like an outpouring of product that I haven't done for probably a decade. So it's a good way to look at it, just as the positive side of it and the opportunities that are there. If you have the time and the motivation to work on the music side and the creative side, it's important for you as an artist also to focus on the business side. Maybe this is your chance to do that. So look at it that way.
Yeah, so perspective is absolutely important, and what you're saying, I think, is amazing, and I completely agree. I started off the pandemic thinking that way, like, oh, I've got all this time to do all these things I've always wanted to do. Doesn't really seem like it's gone that way very well, but we're all doing our best. Spencer, what did you want to add to that?
I was just going to add that for me, the past 9 or so months of, has it been that long? 7 or 8 months of being mostly at home has also been a chance to listen to more music than I have in the past years, like focusing on actually consuming and in addition to creating, because I'm sure this was gonna come up sooner or later, but it's that's a super important part of training yourself to it's like training your sensibilities and giving, and also motivating yourself, because it's really fun to listen to records until you feel like you can't stand listening. You have to go make your own stuff and go work on your own stuff right now. In the past, it's been easy for me to go, weeks at a time without really listening to any new records or taking the time to seek out new inspiring music. And so I think that similarly to how everybody has been, to what everyone else has been saying, this might also be a good time to say, I really need to go listen to some 70s samba music records, or just like expanding what we consume, because it ends up benefiting us so much and it's fun.
That's outstanding advice. Libby, I saw that you wanted to add something here.
Yeah, and I think like what both Anacron and Spencer said as well is kind of a good pivot for what I want to say. But I think that a really important thing to keep in mind, whether it's a pandemic moment or not, is that whatever you're creating, whatever you're writing, whatever you're producing, even if you think it's crap, even if you're like, okay, that line that I just wrote down, I think it's garbage, keep it. Because a lot of the times you'll be able to really like moment something off of that. Just keep what you're doing, keep what you have in your pocket, and build off of that. Like, there is nothing that at the end of the day, when it comes to art, when it comes to creativity, is bad. There's always going to be something that you can build off of that. And now that we have the time to do it, just expend whatever you have going on in your mind. Just put it on paper, put it down, whatever you think you need to do, I think that's really important. There is nothing that, if you double look at it, is bad.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Great. Yeah. I mean, I think everything that you guys
I
have
want to
said-
jump in here.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I think it's like personal perception. Great point, Libby. Your personal perception of what you just played, whether you were just playing at a show or you just made a recording, is always hypercritical to how it actually sounds to other listeners. So I totally agree. You should get all that stuff on record and then judge it later. I spent wasted a lot of time recording and then stopping and being like, no, that's not good. I'm going to do it again. But then now I just let it roll. And then I'm like, that was okay. I'm going to do it again. But you go back and you listen. Sometimes your first take was your best take and you just overthought it. And this goes to a story that I heard about the Grateful Dead, where Jerry Garcia and Phil Lesh, they had just played like a mega show, and Jerry Garcia was really upset with how it went and said that he was literally going to throw Phil Lesh down the stairs. And then they waited 2 or 3 weeks and they went back and they listened to it, and it was like the best thing they had ever played. And then they ended up releasing it, and it ended up being like their Live Without a Net, and it ended up being like their largest selling live release ever, when the leader of the band's initial reaction was he did not feel good about it. Maybe they were like not feeling great at the moment. So I agree with Libby. Keep all that stuff and go back and listen later, because you're gonna want that content as well.
Great. Yeah. So we've talked a lot now about, trying to find ways to motivate yourself, stay creative, and just keep flowing, like let everything flow on your own. A lot of people want to be creative with others, right? You want to bounce ideas, you want to work together, you want to be in a band, maybe, So during the pandemic, especially during a time that we're kind of separated from each other physically, what kind of ideas do you have to create music with friends or meet like-minded strangers that can become friends to create music with? Or getting together, maybe you're getting together in person, you're coming up with ways to do that. What do you guys think about how can you work with others during a time that it's more of a struggle to work with others? Go ahead, Libby.
I can answer that. So I think that even beyond working with different bands or different artists, there's a lot of opportunity right now to work with different organizations that support the entertainment music industry cause, right? So like there's NEVA, Save Our Stages, and there's multiple, I'm kind of looking up one of these articles that I just found today and now I can't find it. Save Live. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. Essentially, one of the guys that started Lollapalooza now started this nonprofit organization that is donating millions of dollars back to independent venue associations, independent venues. And, even beyond, kind of going beyond just the performance aspect of things, I think it's really important to connect yourselves to some of these nonprofit organizations to, one, get yourself and your music heard, but two, to really identify with the fact that you support the music and entertainment industry. So I think that those are really, really good ways to kind of keep yourself involved, keep yourself heard. So those are kind of two examples that I guess I would say.
Sure. Have any of you guys, especially musicians, Greg, Spencer, Anacron, have you found any ways to connect with other musicians, or maybe any technology? I mean, I know we're all using Zoom, right? We're on Zoom school all day long. I'm sure everybody hates it, but maybe that's a great way to connect with someone. Or maybe it's the days of the Postal Service and sending tapes back and forth. I don't know.
I think that there was some of the file sharing projects going on before the shutdown. So if you're already active in the music industry and performing, you would have had some experience with someone sending you some music that they would like you to learn or record along to. Most of the time for me, I would be hired by a client to go to a recording studio and play a song. But now they're sending me the song and I'm recording the song myself at my own studio. It's not a professional recording studio. I have professional recording equipment and it's a room that's sufficient for making great sounds. You can't compare it to any like major studio, but this is how I'm getting it done. So I guess to answer your question is like, you have to be knowledgeable about file sharing and utilizing your digital audio workstation to produce content. So let's say you're a guitar player, you have to know how to record your guitar and then create a file out of that and send that to somebody. So these sort of file sharing things, most of my projects have been people sending me songs and I've overdubbed drums or percussion, or they'll send me a demo that they've created and I record the initial drum tracks and then everyone else records to that. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but it all comes down to file sharing with a cloud or sending people files via email. So
we're talking, you could send me a guitar file in email or Dropbox or Google Drive or one of the many other file sharing programs that exist. And I might take my little recorder out and record myself on GarageBand and just kind of mix it in with your recording, right? And we can keep sharing creative ideas through that process.
100%. And Live in Live Music Conference, I actually teach a class called Distance Music and Video Production, where we work with teenagers to teach them the basics of learning how to record yourself using simple technology like GarageBand, free technology, Cakewalk, GarageBand, whichever side you're on, PC or Apple. But teaching the students how to use this simple software to record themselves, exporting files, and then sharing those files. It's really that simple. And I'm sure there's a lot of major recordings that have been made without everyone getting together in the same recording studio. It's been a lot of major recordings have been made with professionals just knowing how to get the job done on their own. If you have to go to a studio, that's part of it. But some overdubs are probably done at some major artists' houses and things like that. So this sort of
the majority of them nowadays. Yeah. The majority of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm just gonna real quick throw in there that I just heard a really key statement that you could take this awesome class in Fall 2 session about distance creative music making, and you could probably meet other people in that class that want to create music with you. So just throwing that out there for Live in Live Teen Music Conference.
Thanks, Vanessa. Well, I wanted to also add,
we can hear you, Marshall. You're coming out double, so I'm going to mute your original mic.
okay. It's not double?
It is. Spencer or Anachron, is there anything that you guys want to add to the conversation here?
Yeah, just building off of what, I'm sorry, Spencer, did you want to jump in first?
I know I
go first last time. Maybe you should.
I don't have a lot to add because I have only ever met people by accident. So I don't really know exactly how it is really challenging right now when, the things that normally make you bump into people and meet new collaborators by happenstance aren't really happening. Like for me, that has always been school or going to shows or like hanging out with a mutual friend. And so I don't totally know what replaces that right now, but I think that if the reality is that we just have to spend a little bit of time honing in on skills by ourselves, that's probably okay. And I mean, obviously it's really, really fun to collaborate with other people and it's really, really fun to make music in a room with other people. But but all the stuff that we can build sort of in solitude is also really helpful. And ideally, it won't be that long. And I don't want to jinx anything, but it wouldn't be that long until all of that other stuff can start happening again. It's just like a chance to, like Greg was saying, maybe figure out how to have a simple audio interface and use GarageBand or something like that for the first time, because that'll open up a whole bunch of doors, stuff like that, that you can do alone.
Great. Yeah, I'm just gonna because I know Marshall was having a little bit of a mic issue. So Marshall had mentioned that a lot of people believe that you need to have the same software to collaborate, but that's not true, which is a really good point. So if I have GarageBand and Greg has, I think it was Cakewalk, I want to say that you mentioned. Sorry, I don't remember the software exactly, but we could still collaborate, so you don't have to have exactly, you could be a PC and a Mac user and you can still work together, or iOS and Android, and it's okay. Sorry, Anacron, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, a couple things. First, on the technical side, WAV files are universal. WAV files will, those are applicable in any digital audio workstation that you have access to. Secondly, another technical point is, things like, I don't have like a really good setup for recording, or my mic sounds terrible. Utilize it, use it, turn it into the thing that, is your signature sound. I came up in an underground hip hop movement that was built on the worst of the worst audio recording technology at the time, because that's what we could afford. And that became the sound. And that sound is still something that is popularized today. You hear it as like lo-fi, which is like a really big musical style. Now that style is built on the fact that we were recording songs and making music and releasing tapes that sounded like crap. And they sounded horrible because that's what we had access to. It wasn't that we were trying to make it sound muddy and muddled and like cloudy. That's just what we could do. For us, it was kind of the opposite. Like, how do I get it to sound clear? And we just didn't have access to that. There's a lot on the technical side that Greg mentioned, previously, that is completely and totally at your access, because we live in a time now where you can produce studio quality recordings from home. You can produce near studio recordings that you then go to a mastering process later and sound like they were made in the best recording studio in the country. And as Greg mentioned, a lot of the artists that are collaborating on major records are doing it from satellite locations. They're not getting together and recording these songs together. That's just the way it is. Something that's worth noting as well is the fact that the connection piece of working with other artists isn't always a technical issue. Sometimes it's just a matter of finding the connection. And finding the connection is the part that I think is actually probably a little more difficult, because as artists, I think most artists have a tendency to be a little more introverted than extroverted. And something that you have to realize as an artist that has a desire to work with other artists is that you have to find a space where you're able to make yourself uncomfortable enough to step outside of yourself and reach out and make contact with someone that you want to work with. Be ready for rejection, be ready for acceptance, whatever might come from it. There will be a step taken towards making that connection, because the connection is going to be the most important piece in general. All the technical stuff aside, if you don't fully connect with someone and have an opportunity to find a marriage of minds and personalities before you even start working on music together, then the music's not going to happen. So it's reaching out, and what you have access to now, all of the social media accounts that you have, email, everything. You can literally reach around the world now without leaving your house. Use that. That's something that you have that is like the most like applicable advantage for you as artists now. Use it. Just reach out.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that we're actually more connected than we've ever been, even though we're not in person. And I think that too, there's all these social networks, right? I mean, you can join Facebook groups with other musicians, with genres that you like, with, or I don't think Instagram has groups, but I'm sure that you can search out other like-minded people on Instagram, and connect with them. Look, I don't know how TikTok works, but you kids do. I'm sure you also know how to connect with people there. So there's all sorts of social network technology too that you can utilize to connect with other people, especially your age. Not someone like me who says I don't know how TikTok works. So appreciate all of your guys' input there. And leading out of that, there's, you know, we're talking to all of you guys that are a little bit younger than us, you know, just by a year or two. And I imagine that a lot of you are looking for the opportunity someday to be a professional or amateur or touring musician. Someday you want to stand on a stage, you want to play whatever skill set that you have, you want to show the world. And so there's a lot more that goes into creating that musical career than just writing, than just performing, and then just what you're going to do in your bedroom. Okay, so there's a lot of steps that we have to take from your bedroom to get to the stage. And I would love to hear what you guys think, panelists, on things that young musicians can do to help them take another step towards that. And I think, Anacron, I think it was you that mentioned that there's a lot of business that goes behind the music industry. So I'd love to hear from you first, and just a couple things that young musicians can think about to take steps towards growing to be a professional musician.
Okay. I think that first I want to, kind of address the artistic side, just kind of revisit something that Spencer actually mentioned, which I think is incredibly important, is the fact that you have to listen to other music. I think that's something I've noticed as kind of a new trend in recent decade or so, is that a lot of artists that I meet and work with, or that want to work with me, you know, I ask who they listen to and they don't listen to anybody. And I'm like, how do you grow as an artist if you don't have, you know, music that you're listening to? You know, appreciate and listen and be a fan. And that's what will help you grow as an artist, period. And then as far as business stuff is concerned, I mean, you want to have control over your career. You want to have control over your trajectory. And you've got to know some of the business side of things. If you don't learn the business side of things, then essentially you're going to fall into the category of artists, the long list of artists that eventually at some point get taken advantage of, or, you know, don't have a great experience with art and maybe end up like this bitter old artist, like, you know, living in the shadows or whatever, which happens to a lot of folks. But I don't want that for you. You shouldn't want that for yourself. You should want to have control over what's happening and understand what's happening on the business side. And that's just a matter of educating yourself, taking classes like anything that Live in Live offers, taking courses outside of that, anywhere you can learn about the business, about what's going on behind the scenes, about publishing, about legal matters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Latch onto that and learn that as much as you possibly can. I promise you, as an artist, it will be painful for you. It will be boring. It will seem useless and pointless. But when you get to a point in your career where these things start coming up and you're like, ooh, I know what this means, I understand, you're not going to get taken advantage of. And that's where you want to be.
And I'd like to add to that too, especially for you guys that are able to take these courses or any other courses. I mean, ask questions, you know, ask your teachers, ask your mentors, find mentors and ask questions. Don't be there. The old phrase, there's no stupid questions. I mean, it's really true. Like, don't be afraid to ask, you know, well, I got an offer to play a show tonight, but they said they don't want to pay me. What do I do? Don't be afraid to ask that question. It's not a dumb question. Okay. So just always ask, you know, and take advantage of the people that have done this and have gone through the hardship of figuring things out. Take advantage of them. Learn as much as you can from them. And I also, Spencer, I want to kind of get your input here, but another thing I want to throw out there, I've worked a lot with young, growing artists over the years, and one of the things that I notice when a young person is ready to take their first step and they want to perform on stage, it's really scary the first time, by the way. But you're not used to the lights that are going to come at you. You're not used to the sound check. Maybe you've never heard yourself in a monitor before. These are all brand new experiences. But they are things that you should think through beforehand. Some of the best young hip hop artists I've seen that do an amazing job on stage is because they've thought about what color lights they want, what their outfit looks like, where they're standing. Are they moving around? Are they standing still? I mean, all of that's really important practice in front of a mirror. Some of the best artists I know have stood in front of a mirror for 8 hours a day watching what they look like so they know what everybody else sees. So I just want to throw that out there as well. But Spencer, I also want to give it to you and see what kind of information you have to offer.
Yeah, thank you. I think that when I think back on, I started playing shows live at a pretty unusually young age. My bandmates and I played our first show when we were 7 years old, which is pretty abnormal. But when I think back to the conversations that my bandmates and I were having and what we were trying to do at that time, playing a show seemed like an unattainable goal. It seemed like something that grown-ups do, and it seemed also like the coolest possible thing we could do. But we discovered, not quite at 7 years old, those but a little bit after that, when we were more able to use the computer and talk to other people with our parents' supervision, we realized that for some smaller clubs I think everybody here probably lives in or around Chicago or wherever you live. Thankfully, most cities and small towns have music venues. If they're pretty small, if they're like 150 people capacity rooms, or 100 people, even 300 people, they usually have a calendar to fill, and they're usually pretty open to having new bands and local musicians play there. So we started emailing talent buyers at clubs and booking shows on our own that way, which felt super, super cool, and also taught us that it's possible, and that you don't need a booking agent or to like wait for someone to walk up to you on the street and ask if you want to play a show. I think that it's important to seek out examples of how to effectively talk to people who run music venues, because it can be there's just a lot of rules of thumb that go into how to make sure that your message gets across well. But just quickly, I would say that the number one thing is assume that everybody you're talking to has very little time, and they don't want to read like 5 paragraphs about your band or something like that. So the more you can keep it to the point and include just a snippet of information, relevant information about how to contact you or whatever, or the dates you're looking to play a show, and then maybe a short example of your music, like as basically as minimal as it can be, while still showing why you're worth booking, and why they would put on a good show with your music, is probably the way to go. And maybe the first couple venues don't get back to you or say they're sorry and they can't have a show, but sooner or later you'll probably be able to set up your own show that way.
So be persistent.
Yeah.
I can say I've been a talent buyer for many years. I've also been an artist manager, tour manager, and I don't read 5 paragraphs. I don't have time because I'm getting 120 emails a day, but I'm listening to everything that comes in. Not everybody does. But like Spencer said, like be persistent and get the right information out there. I'll also throw out for all of you guys on the call that I am happy to ever answer questions or offer help in these areas. I know that we're going to be posting an email address too for any other questions you guys have, but I'm here if anybody has anything that I can help out with. And Libby, I wanted to ask you too, especially as a marketing director for artists, what do you see as things that can help growing artists be successful to get on the stage?
It's kind of funny. I think this might sound kind of detrimental to my marketing agency, but at the end of the day, as an artist, you guys are your best promoters. You need to promote yourself, be confident in yourself, and share it. At the end of the day, that is the number one goal. And I think, Spencer kind of spoke to that as well. but just share your message, continue to share what you're creating, and don't ever think twice about it, and share with people that support you. That's what I tell, even if they're musicians or not, that's what I tell all of my clients. At the end of the day, you guys are your number one promoters, and you're your own rock stars. So do that.
I completely agree, 1000%. Self-promotion is number one. Before we jump over to letting you guys open up all the questions, I wanted to ask Greg if you had.
Can I throw in another thought on that real fast? I'm sorry.
Go for it.
So I just, listening to Spencer talk and also what Libby added to that, I think that initiative is a huge, huge part of, what is going to make you successful. I think that thinking from my own experience as an artist and the fact that I came from a do-it-yourself background, primarily, being an underground hip hop artist, I came from a place of not wanting to be a part of the major labels and all that kind of stuff, and wanting to start my own thing, starting my own label, wanting to start my own, book my own shows at venues that even weren't necessarily music venues, like just finding a place that had space for us to perform and then turning that into a music venue for a night, which was a lot easier than going to the music venues that are, denying us and saying, no, we don't have time, or we've never heard of you. It's like, cool, we'll start our own show. And guess what? Our show's going to have way more people than you have at your music venue on the same night. And then the music venues come looking for us. Same thing with the label. We started our own labels. We started putting our own music out. We were selling so much music, the major labels started coming and looking for us. So there's also a way where you can build your own thing that makes the people that you're pursuing turn around and begin to pursue you. So also think about that, and think about, creating a value for yourself that makes people want to have you there, rather than always feeling like you're chasing someone and asking them to let you on, because you're the artist. These places wouldn't exist without you. These places wouldn't exist without what you're creating. If they didn't have any musicians, they wouldn't have a check. So sometimes it's about letting them know, hey, I'm valuable, and you need to be paying attention to what I'm doing, and you need to be asking me to come to you to share what I'm doing. And then the other final thing that I wanted to say, I used to always share, I was speaking on college panels for like many years, and I used to always say, no, say no, say no, say no. Whatever people offer you, say no, always no. Now I'm like the opposite. I feel like now I'm like, say yes to everything. Anything you can do, anything you are asked to do. It's like, get out there, especially in the beginning stages of your career. The more people that see you, the more collaborations you do, the more that gets your name out there, your image out there, and who you are. And then people, again, come looking for you.
Mm-hmm. And now, especially during pandemic times, but also in the boom of technology in 2020, the last 10 years, I guess, you can live stream, right? You guys can play on Facebook, on Instagram, on all these things. Just show the world what you're doing, which is a great way to start getting yourself out there. Greg, do you have anything that you want to add before we jump over to our Q&A here?
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of porch concerts are popping up, and this kind of goes along with Anacron. What Anacron was saying is now people have the opportunity to present music in a totally different way. You could socially distance your band on your porch and do a live show and have just socially distanced public watch you, but you could also live stream it and have access to literally millions of viewers. Kurt Elling, famous jazz singer who recently moved back to Chicago, he did a porch concert 2 weeks ago, and his jazz concert from his porch at his house was like the number 8 most watched live stream in the world that day or something. So it's possible. Kurt's a big artist, but he was competing with like people like Billie Eilish and mega concerts and things like that. So it can be done, and build the demand, and then you can ask for more money. And so I think that Anacron said something great. It's like you build your thing, and people are going to get excited about it, and then you're going to be able to let the clubs know, hey, check out this video. Look at how many views I got, or that would be the more modern approach. Or back when live shows were more popular, it's like, hey, we did a live show at the Tonic Room, small venue. We sold it out 3 nights in a row. We need to move into a bigger venue. That always looks good as well. So you build the demand. And I'm also a yes person as well. I'm smart about opportunities I take, but I say yes most of the time because I see the good in almost every opportunity. And if someone doesn't want to pay you, it's normally because they don't have the money, but there's normally something else behind that opportunity that will either connect you with more viewership, people buying your merchandise, or connect you with the types of musicians who you want to be playing with, people in bigger circles or just different circles than yours. So don't always look at the money as the first thing that you need before you say yes to an opportunity, because there's learning. There's also learning and experience in all these opportunities.
Sorry about that.
Well, and I was gonna say too, Greg, in addition to just like connecting with people and learning from them, it's also like it's an experience for you to just kind of learn about your craft and yourself as an artist. Like never ever, and I know we've said this multiple times now, both Anacron and Greg and everyone pretty much has been like, yeah, continue to take every opportunity that's possible, but like continue to work your craft. Like, why would you discount an opportunity when it's an opportunity for you to work on yourself at the end of the day? I think that's a really important thing.
Absolutely. Well, you guys have offered so much today, and I really appreciate it. We have a few questions so far from the people joining us, which I'll run through. But if you guys out there, if you kids out there, if you want to ask a question verbally, just, I think there's like a raise your hand thing, or you know what, shout them out. That's fine. We're just going to have fun with this. But I'm going to start reading a couple that are in the chat here. Oscar had asked about... where did you go? There we go. Meeting other musicians with common interests. And I think we kind of touched on that, Oscar. If you want us to expand anymore, just throw it in here and we'll let you know, and we'll touch base on it. Brisha, I hope I'm saying your name right, and I'm really sorry if I'm not, wants to know how, and I think this might be for you, Anacron, how did you begin your networking as a songwriter?
How did I begin?
How did you begin
Networking.
You type this out when you
wow. So yeah. So what's up, Brisha? Brisha actually took my class a couple sessions ago. Nice to see you again. I hope the work's been going well. So when I started, things were a lot different. I began in the old prehistoric times of the 1990s. So a lot of my network was actually generated in a real face-to-face, way. And the majority of really, I'd say 80% of everything that I've ever done professionally was somehow connected to the original network of people that I started with, which was like a closely knit group of folks that then expanded to this kind of worldwide collective of artists that I formed when I was still in high school. It started forming when I was still in high school, and still to this day exists, and still to this day is a collaborative unit and team globally. But one of the things that I was around for was the dawn of the internet and the start of the internet and the birth of like music being on the internet as an internet thing. I was one of the, pioneer set of hip hop artists to sell music online and be connected online. And that opened up this whole world of kind of what I was speaking of before, just being able to reach out to folks and say, hey, I like what you're doing. I like where you're going with this. I've heard your stuff, just sending an email back then, the social networking wasn't even a thing yet, but sending an email to someone and just saying, hey, let's do some stuff together, and some folks were like, hey, I've never heard of you. I'm not interested. And some folks were like, hey, sure, let's do something and we'll figure out a way to do it. So it's just, taking that initiative and being willing to set yourself up to either be rejected or accepted, as I mentioned earlier, but really just stepping outside of yourself, getting a little uncomfortable and making a pitch to somebody. My advice would be to pursue and find folks that are at the same level that you're at as far as their careers, what they're working on. But, even reaching outside of the genre of music that you do is excellent, because that's how you create new genres. That's how you create new sounds, is by working with people that don't necessarily do what you do. But step outside of yourself and just reach out to folks. All you can get is a no and move on to the next person. And then you'll get a yes eventually.
That's great. What do they say now? You got to slide into the DMs, right? Yeah. Audrey is asking, what do you think is a good strategy to market yourself on digital platforms, especially your own songs? Libby, I'm going to send that one over to you.
Yeah, so I think it's a multi-step approach. You first and foremost really, really have to identify with who you are and how you can separate yourself from the pack, right? So really think about like, okay, I'm an artist, I'm a musician, but what makes you such a unique artist and musician, right? So if you're a rock artist, kind of what even funnels you even beyond just being a rock artist, right? And even thinking about like, this is the verbiage that identifies with me, and making sure that you stick with that verbiage in whatever it is that you're sharing. I would also, when you're thinking about social media, which is obviously prevalent, we obviously need to focus on that. What is your social media platforms that seem to resonate with your audience best? Because, there's so much hype around TikTok and Instagram and, pages like that. But if you're continuing to resonate with your audience on Twitter or Facebook, focus on that. Like, if that's where your audience is lying, focus on that. Focus on streaming, especially right now. Focus on sharing whatever it is that you're creating with the verbiage that you identify with on a streaming platform. Leverage the power of video. Video is king at the end of the day. Like, the more that you can share that really gives a sneak peek into who you are and what you're doing creatively via video is the best. And as much as you can do, especially right now, try to just connect with venues and just, gig as much as possible. Even if it's a live stream sort of format, because that kind of connects back to the video and content aspect.
I just want to add to that. I've recently, because we are doing a lot of streaming, a lot of video sharing, I have unfortunately seen amazing musicians, young people that are putting out this awesome stuff that forget to attach their name to it. Okay. So make sure that your name is attached to anything that you put out there, because otherwise we're not going to find you. The right person that hears you but doesn't know your name, they're going to be moving on. So just make sure.
That's why that first step, Vanessa, is so important. Like, really looking into your brand identity and putting that on paper before you can share anything. Because if you don't have that established and you forget to put your name on stuff, it's like,
So do you guys have any more questions that you want to throw at us? Or I will also throw at you guys. If any of you have come up with great ways to network yourself, to connect with other people, all the things we've been talking about, and you want to share that, let's hear it. That's what we're here for. Silence. Not even crickets. Dead silence. All right. Well, we will. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing. There's a very affordable distribution service called DistroKid, and I'm not sure how many other artists out there have used that, but it's like $40 a year, and that's a solid way to get your song that you've produced distributed to Spotify, Apple Music, and all of that stuff. So look into DistroKid. That's one platform. I'm just answering the question of how do I get my song. How do I get people to listen to my song or promote my song or my brand on social media? Well, you have to get your songs out there. So DistroKid is a good distribution network for getting your song streaming, and then creating a simple 1-minute video that promotes that song, whether it's a still shot with the title of your song, your favorite, the best part of the song. sending them to DistroKid to purchase your, or at least stream your song, or send them to Bandcamp, which is another great platform for releasing music. I think that's free and people can pay what they want. So you can release one song, you can release a whole album, but you create a 1-minute video that you put on Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, and you use that 1-minute video or less to direct them towards your main content that you want them to listen to. So that's just an answer for the how do you distribute your music? How do you get your music out there? That's, I think, some concrete advice for getting that done.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. We've got another question here. Question for Spencer. What would you say would be the next step after playing at a venue with a capacity of around 150 people like you were talking about? Before Spencer answers, I'm going to say keep doing it. But go ahead, Spencer.
Yeah, and when I mentioned that capacity, I didn't mean to suggest that we brought 150 people to buy tickets to that show. That's just like the size of the room. It's it's really hard to sell tickets, and everybody on this panel, and probably some of you who have played shows already know that from experience. But I think that they're pretty much my experience in this area. I mean, I'm still a young musician, so it's pretty limited, but it seems to me like there's two main ways to make that 150 capacity room get full. And one way is from your friends / your extended friends, like as far as a social group or a scene that you're a part of. That's not really something that you can control. It's just something that like bubbles up out of a community, like a bunch of different bands kind of playing similar music, and then there are all these different groups of friends that all kind of come together. And then when a show, if you're connected to that and you have a show happening and people in that extended group find out about it, that can be a way that that room gets filled up, and then and maybe gets filled up past that, getting back to your question of past 150 people. But sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, and then so when I was in high school, my bandmates and I were in high school, we were sort of part of a group like that. Not really, because we were a little bit too young to be connected with like rock bands in Chicago that really had a community built around them. But we were still able to sell tickets to our friends at school. A venue, I don't know if venues still do this, but they would give us like a stack of paper tickets that we could sell for $5 or $8 or whatever it was, and literally try to sell out the show face to face by selling tickets in cash to our classmates and stuff like that. And that's not easy either, but that's still on like the social side of just filling up a venue out of your community. And then but I think the other thing, that event that starts playing a bigger part in filling up a venue, is maybe eventually talking to people like Libby about having some sort of press strategy, like, talking to a local newspaper, talking to national outlets and stuff, if you can get their attention somehow. Those things kind of, like, you don't have an audience yet, but audiences do exist, and press outlets or other artists and all these other things have audiences of their own, and that can be a foot in the door to getting people to see what you're doing. Opening for other bands is a big one that I totally forgot to mention, but the press stuff is probably not worth focusing on until a lot of other things have happened. And I would just say trying to fill small venues with your friends and like kind of extended people is the best way to go. And from there, there's no real technical hurdles from going beyond 150 cap venue to a 300 or whatever. It's just a matter of talking to different people and then having the ability to sell enough tickets for it.
Yeah, that's great. And I think just to wrap up, we're gonna jump over to our winner here in a second, but I do want to also throw out there that, you know, Spencer talked about being an opening band. I think it's really important as musicians that you all support each other. Whether you're the opening band, whether you're the headlining band, maybe you're not playing, but your friend's band is playing, or a band you've heard of is playing, support each other, go to each other's shows, listen to each other's music, and be there with each other. Because this community isn't going to exist if it's not a community. So, you know, work together. Yay. So,
Yeah, I would. Well, I was gonna say I completely agree with what you just said. One of my best friends and bandmates is I know him because he went to every show. He was at every single show I ever went to. But what I was gonna say before that is don't be deterred by no. So with what Spencer was saying with Anacron, really everyone, use when someone tells you no, use that as fuel to like prove them wrong and just work harder.
I like that.
And then if I can jump in too, really quickly, just for Ryland's question, if you're able to play a 150 person show in Chicago, you could do a 300 person show in Milwaukee or a 300 person show in Cincinnati. So look at smaller markets and pitch to the venues in those smaller markets and say, hey, I'm doing shows here. We're the next big thing in Chicago. People in Cincinnati are going to say, oh, we want to book this band. And then you're going to be booking bigger venues. So look at that as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say one last quick thing. I know we're wrapping up. I just wanted to say also, when I know Spencer had mentioned, like, you know, pitching to local or national, you know, PR outlets, whatever. Think about bloggers, think about influencers that are working in the music industry, think about college newspapers, think about people that really want to be interested in what you're telling, what story you're telling. It doesn't have to be this big, like, home run, right? It could literally be these, like, you know, baby outlets. And if they get you 50 people into the show, if you're performing around a college, and if they get you 50 people into a show, or pitch to them.
50 people is a lot, by the way. That's
50
awesome.
people's a lot, 25. But build up. Like, there's so many different opportunities to just share your information outside of just like large scale outlets, right? There's so much stuff out there by way of sharing your information. Share it. It's out there. You got Google.
So I wish we could talk all night, guys. I really do. But I also don't want to take up all your nights, especially since I know you're all on Zoom all day long. Yay! So I am going to ask Libby to throw it into the chat box here and on Facebook. We have an email address that we're going to share with you guys for any other questions you have. If they're directed to Anacron or Spencer or Greg or me or whoever, we'll make sure that they get them. But ask questions because we're all here for you. And woo! Here comes the exciting part. No, wait, that whole thing was amazing, wasn't it? Come on, it was amazing. So we are now going to get to our giveaway. So first off, we're going to do a little screen share, fancy Zoom time screen share. And I just want to show you guys a picture of these super duper awesome $400 headphones donated by Shure. Yay! Woo! Yeah! Okay, they're awesome. Now, here comes the really exciting part. Boom! All your names are in this wheel. Everyone that signed up. It's like magic. The internet's great. So the internet is going to choose who the winner is tonight. I do want to say that I would like to hear your voice if you win. So please yell out, yay, that's me. And we'll make sure we get a hold of you. Okay, so here we go. Woo! Oh, Vincent! No, what, Vincent? Are you here? Is our big winner? Vincent? Vincent? No, Vincent? Okay, you must be present to win. I don't hear anyone, so we're gonna roll one more time. Right, Marshall? Say yes or no. Yeah, okay. So, let me just... There we go, here we go. Oh, Max! Max, we know you're there because you're performing with us.
Max,
So congratulations, Max. Great job. Thanks for performing.
Max says he's here. He's got his banjo in his lap and he's ready to play. So.
So we've got a special treat for all of you. We have a performance coming up from Rylan. Thanks, Rylan. So we're going to show our performance of Rylan, and then Max and Otto are going to pop back on. I am going to throw a link in the chat here for you guys so that you can watch it on your Facebooks. And thank you guys. Thank you everyone for being here, panelists, kids, parents, everyone. I know there's a lot going on. Maybe there's nothing going on, but it feels like there's a lot going on. Appreciate all of your moments, all of your time. And I hope that you all stay happy and healthy and great. And I'm gonna throw it to Jeremy so that he can take Rylan live.
Thanks to Marshall for setting this up, and also to everybody who's stuck around. Last time I was here, it was raining. It ain't raining anymore. The streets were drowned, the water's waning, all the ruins washed ashore. Now I'm here looking through the rubble, trying to find out who we were. Last time I was here, it was raining. It ain't raining anymore. Last time I was here, you were waiting. You're not waiting anymore. The windows broke, the smoke's escaping, the books scattered across the floor. And the church bells ringing through the sirens, and Duke coat was full of bullet holes. Last time I was here, you were waiting. You're not waiting anymore. So, may the wind blow, may the moonlight know your name. So, let the needle move the record round till the walls cave in. And you and I were out there dancing in the dirty rain. Last time I was here, it was raining like you've never seen it rain. Your eyes were filled with terror and the smoke from the gasoline. As the stars exploded with gunfire, saw you smiling just before. Last night I was here, you were crying. You ain't crying anymore. So, may the wind blow, may the moonlight know your name. So, let the needle move the record round till the walls cave in. And you and I were out there dancing in the dirty rain. Thanks.
Real, right here. All right. Yeah, perfect. Oh, uh-oh. Come on. Fine.
Thanks to Marshall for setting this up, and also to everybody who's stuck around.